Monster Rise is a game that proudly wears its inspirations on its shoulders. From weapon design down to the food, it is obvious that the Monster Hunter Portable team felt their pickle tickled for Japan again. Of course, the major focus of Monster Hunter are the monsters, and this game brings in a bunch of new monsters with interesting origins in Japanese yokai, which are basically mythological Japanese beings ranging from the benevolent to the malevolent. In this series of videos, I dig around and tell you the origins of these new monsters, from their animal inspirations to their yokai counterparts. So grab a snack and let's explore the Hunter Notes. What if a raptor was a furry? Enter the Great Izuchi, which is the first boss monster you face off in the game. A good introductory monster helps ease you into the way the game works. While I think that the best intro monster is the Great Macao from Generations, the Great Izuchi is another great teacher, especially after the complete joke that was the Great Jagras. The Great Izuchi has some quick attacks, but they have obvious tells, with stronger attacks having longer wind-up animations. This teaches the player what to expect from later monsters, and with the relatively small damage output the Great Izuchi has, makes it forgiving when new players make mistakes. But I digress. You're not here for a quick game design rundown. You're here for the animal and yokai origins of the monster. Its Hunter Notes entry reads, the alpha Izuchi of its pack, identified by its larger build, appended white fur and scythe-like tail. A Great Izuchi forms a herd of many smaller Izuchi, and selects two from the group to accompany it on territory patrols. Once it spots prey or senses danger, the Great Izuchi issues commands to their fellow Izuchi and coordinates their movements. Take care that you don't get overwhelmed. Many of the starter monsters are pack monsters, usually since they are typically based off of raptors. The raptor is a type of smaller theropod that usually rely on forming packs to take down larger prey. The most well-known are the Velociraptor, Troodon, and most importantly, the Dromaeosaurus. The Dromaeosaurus was a small raptor that hunted in packs, but it's most known for its sickle-shaped claw. These claws could dig deep into the flesh of dinosaurs. Combine that with the large packs that hunted together, and you had a recipe for success. The Great Izuchi has 3 sickles, but instead of the sickle claws being on the hind legs, the sickle claws are instead on the forelimbs and most notably, the tail. The alpha coordinates with its smaller brethren to take down the hunter or its prey. The Great Izuchi will fight on its own, but it will always call for backup. There are specific references in both its coordinated attacks and its intro cutscene to its main yokai counterpart. There is even a basic visual reference, being its fur. Anyone who knows about dinosaurs knows that raptors had feathers, which would mean that it would look more similar to the Kuluyaku. But why the fur? The Great Izuchi is largely based off of the Kama Itachi. The Kama Itachi is the sickle weasel, a yokai that travel in groups of 3s. These yokai are coordinated and ride the wind, seemingly being invisible due to this. They cut with extreme precision, being so precise as to cut without dropping a single cell of blood. So are they a real threat? The answer is no. The first weasel cuts the legs of the victim, causing them to trip. The second cuts thousands upon thousands of wounds. The third then heals the cuts. This all happens so fast that the victim cannot feel the cuts or the healing. The end result just looks like the person tripped in the wind. So that's it, right? Wrong! There is another detail about this monster's design that has been noticed by the player base. The Great Izuchi's mouth looks as if it has been slit. Naturally, of course. There is a far more sinister yokai at play here. One of the most famous, in fact. The Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. There once was a beautiful young woman who would draw the attention of many men. This included evil men. Men who took pleasure in abusing these women in horrible ways. This woman was one such a victim, being captured by one of the monsters in human flesh. She endured torture until she met her gruesome end by having her mouth slit wide open. The man, laughing at his bloody work, left the knife he used by her limp left hand, a final mockery of the once beautiful woman. How could her soul have a peaceful rest after going through such an ordeal? She lost her family, belongings, the pleasures of being a free woman, and even died with her looks forever tainted. She could not accept death, and turned into a demon. Even as a demon, she could not have her beauty restored, as all of her wounds healed save for the accursed carving that forever blemished her once proud beauty. If she were to walk the earth as an ugly husk of her former self, she would vow vengeance on her killer. She looked human if her mouth was covered, so she found herself a fan to hide the grisly reminder that she should be dead. She would wander the countryside at night, even going into the village to look for her killer. Rumors spread quickly throughout the village of the woman's recent disappearance, and the sudden appearance of the eerie woman with the fan covering her visage. The fear of disappearing like the village beauty, and the mysterious new woman that haunted the village at night, caused most villagers to lock their homes up early for the night. There was one person who was not afraid, and was even excited about the new woman who plagued the town. It was her killer, and he was anxious to meet his second victim in what he hoped would become a killing spree. On this particular night, he decided to wait in the outskirts of the town, where the ghostly woman was said to first appear. He waited and waited under a cherry tree, making it look like he was gazing at the sea of stars above, until he spotted a feminine figure in a white kimono walking down the dirt path. He internally cheered when he spotted her main defining feature, her fan. She looked quite familiar, but for some reason, he couldn't place it. His plan was to seemingly ignore her and act as a stargazer. This was quickly dropped when she stopped in her walk and turned to him. She slowly walked towards him with the grace of a crane, all the while still keeping her fan over the bottom portion of her face. The man could have easily overpowered her, could have easily just rushed at her, but something kept his feet firmly rooted to the ground. Something about this woman made him feel absolute dread. She finally stopped in front of the man, not once moving the fan away from her visage. They stared into each other's eyes, the tree leaves rustling with the wind, which has become more forceful with the increasing tension of the two. Then, the woman asked a simple question to the quivering man. "Do you think I am beautiful?" The man gulped, but his chapped lips moved before he could think about it. "Yes." The woman then giggled at his response. Her hands violently trembled. Her dull blue eyes twitched. When she stopped, she took one step forward, a mere breath away from the man's face. She coldly stared at the shaken man, and had begun slowly closing her fan as she leaned closer into his face. She dropped her fan and gently placed her hands on both sides of his face. She held his face and suddenly pushed him against the tree. His head hurt from the collision, but that could not compare to the sight he saw when she backed up. Her mouth dripped with blood when she once more asked, "Do you think I am beautiful?" He could not answer, terrified of the sight before him. Her eyes were bloodshot as she trembled. She had her mouth wide open and let out a blood-curdling scream. "Do you think I am beautiful?" Her pupils had shrunk as her eyes seemed to almost pop out of her skull. He screamed and shouted, "Yes! You are beautiful! You are beautiful!" She cackled and drew a gleaming knife, the knife that had carved into her. The village heard the tortured screams from that night, the tortured screams of a woman and a man. The next morning, a group of young men were sent to investigate the site where the shrieks were heard. They were met with the gory sight of a limp man sat at the bottom of the cherry tree. His head lolled to the side as his lower jaw was slowly falling apart, his mouth now slit wide open. This would not be the last time such a sight awaited passerby, as rumors were often spread that if you see a woman walking alone at night with a fan covering her face, get the hell away from there, for no matter your response, your fate is sealed upon hearing her question, "Do you think I am beautiful?"